What if I told you the King of England has never met his own granddaughter? Not once. Not at birth. Not at Christmas. Not at any royal christening, holiday, or balcony event. Now what if I told you? He might not even be sure she exists. That's not just a wild tabloid theory anymore. That's the bombshell claim echoing through the gilded halls of Buckingham Palace, ricocheting off the crumbling relationship between the House of Windsor and the self-exiled Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Harry and Meghan. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. And the target of this storm? A child. Lilibet Diana, Mountbatten, Windsor. Allegedly born on June 4, 2021. Allegedly the Queen's namesake. Allegedly the daughter of a prince and the granddaughter of a reigning monarch. Allegedly. But where is she? Seriously, where is she? 2.5 years since her birth, and the world has barely seen a glimpse. No official portrait. No verified video footage. No appearances at major events. And not a single documented meeting with King Charles, her own grandfather. Does that strike you as normal? For any family? Now imagine it's the royal family, the most image-conscious, protocol-obsessed, and historically documented dynasty on Earth. A family that, for generations, has paraded its heirs and spares before the cameras with robotic consistency. So why is Lilibet being treated like a royal secret? Why would King Charles, who reportedly longed for reconciliation with his son, never make the effort to meet his granddaughter? Unless the opportunity never truly existed. Unless there's something deeper at play. Unless she was never really meant to be seen. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a pattern. A pattern of missing photos, absent confirmations, shady documents, and convenient excuses. A pattern the palace has never officially denied. And now, after months of whispers and speculation, it appears King Charles himself may have confirmed the unthinkable. According to a leaked conversation, corroborated by multiple royal insiders, the king is alleged to have said in private, "I've never met her. I've never even seen her." Pause for a second. Let that sink in. He has never even seen her. That's not just estrangement. That's absence. That's detachment so absolute it almost defies logic. Unless this isn't about estrangement. Unless this is about something or someone who isn't really there. Because if the monarch has never met her, and the Queen only met her on Zoom, and the Cambridges never acknowledged her, and the only visual evidence of her existence comes in the form of a grainy, backlit photo from a Netflix montage, we have to ask, does Lilibet Diana actually exist? Or has she become something else entirely? An idea, a brand, a storyline, but not a real person the world has ever truly seen? Too far-fetched? That's what they said about Diana's tapes, about Camilla's phone calls, about Prince Andrew's friendships, about Harry's drug use, about Meghan's palace bullying investigations, about Archie's secret christening, until they weren't far-fetched, until they exploded into headlines and lawsuits and resignations, until they shook the monarchy to its core. Now buckle up, because what we're about to unpack could make every previous royal scandal look like child's play. Over the next hour, we're going to dive deep into the tangled web of timelines, press releases, photo scandals, legal documents, and conflicting narratives surrounding baby Lilibet. We're going to expose the contradictions, the ghost appearances, the suspicious silences, and the shocking slips. We'll examine the birth certificate that didn't add up, the christening that may have never happened, the photo op that mysteriously disappeared, the Queen's alleged Zoom call that no one saw, the eerie absence from royal records and events, and the devastating quote from King Charles that sparked this entire investigation. We'll talk about Meghan's PR machine, how it used motherhood as emotional leverage, how the name Lilibet Diana was possibly chosen to evoke maximum sympathy and royal association, how every move seemed designed to tug on heartstrings, while avoiding any real transparency. And we'll raise the most uncomfortable question of all. What if this child was used not just as a symbol, but as a shield, a way to deflect criticism, a tool to build empathy, a strategy to control the narrative? Sound cynical? Then ask yourself this. Where is the evidence that disproves it? Where is the royal photo? Where is the verified documentation? Where is the moment, any moment, where Lilibet Diana was publicly acknowledged by a senior royal in person. We're not talking about tabloid speculation. We're talking about the complete absence of the one thing the royals have always clung to: protocol. Even during the darkest days of World War II, royal births were documented. Even with scandalous love affairs and abdications, heirs were photographed. Even during Diana's breakdown, William and Harry remained fixtures in royal photo ops. But not Lilibet. She's the ghost in the royal family photo album. And the excuses keep piling up. Security concerns. She's a private citizen. We wanted her to grow up in peace. But then, why sign multi-million-dollar Netflix deals? Why sell your family stories, your children's stories, to the world's biggest streaming platform, only to redact the one thing people expected to see? Because make no mistake, Lilibet isn't just any child. She's sixth in line to the throne. She's named after two of the most iconic women in royal history, Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Diana. She's the ultimate fusion of the monarchy and modernity. Royal blood meets California culture. A legacy child with a potential platform larger than any before her. And yet, she's vanished from public life like a shadow slipping into fog. Could all of this have a simple explanation? Sure. But simple explanations usually come with simple proof. And so far, the only thing we've gotten is a deafening silence and a few suspiciously timed PR stunts. We're going to trace the timeline. We're going to follow the breadcrumbs. And we're going to confront the possibility that this isn't just a case of royal estrangement, but of royal deception. Because in the end, this story isn't just about whether Lilibet exists. It's about why so many powerful people seem determined to make sure we don't ask. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So get ready, because this rabbit hole goes deeper than you think. And the first stop? The birth announcement that started it all. But what came next would change everything. And no one saw it coming. What came next wasn't a royal parade. It wasn't a christening. It wasn't even a photo outside a hospital with a sleepy newborn swaddled in white lace. What came next was silence. No trumpets. No town crier. No royal staff beaming beside a royal easel outside Buckingham Palace. Instead, it was a simple statement, issued by a press secretary in California. And that, dear viewer, was the first red flag. Let's go back to the very beginning. June 4th, 2021. According to that statement, Meghan Markle gave birth to a healthy baby girl, Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor, at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. Now pause. Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital? A charming location, but certainly not a typical setting for a royal birth. Compare that to the fanfare surrounding Archie's birth in 2019. Though even that was cloaked in some secrecy, there was at least some semblance of royal procedure. Journalists were lined up outside. Staff dressed in traditional garb. Official statements were coordinated by Buckingham Palace. But for Lilibet? Nothing. No photographers. No royal car. No crowd of excited royalists waving flags. Not even a single image of Meghan entering or exiting the hospital. And perhaps most strangely, no confirmation from the hospital itself. Let that sink in. One of the most high-profile births of the decade, and not a single attending physician gave a public statement. Not even the usual line about mother and baby doing well. No photo of hospital staff lined up smiling. No proud nurse holding the baby's footprints. Do you remember how hospitals responded when Prince George was born? Or Princess Charlotte? Or even Prince Louis? They were national events. Security was tight. Press statements were issued. Doctors spoke on camera. But for Lilibet? Only silence. And that silence grew louder. Because what followed was a kind of anti-announcement. The public was told, via a generic press release from Harry and Meghan's spokesperson, that the baby had arrived 2 days after the fact. That's right. She was reportedly born on June 4th, but the public wasn't told until June 6th. Why the delay? Why would two people so adept at media manipulation, so skilled at crafting headlines, withhold such a massive moment? You'd think they'd want to shout it from the rooftops. You'd think they'd have cameras ready. You'd think they'd be posting adorable swaddled baby photos within minutes, especially since they no longer had to follow rigid royal protocol. But they didn't. And from that moment on, something fell off. Because what followed wasn't a celebration. It wasn't transparency. It was a shroud of ambiguity that has never fully lifted. Let's break it down. The announcement read, "It is with great joy that Prince Harry and Meghan, The Duke and Duchess of Sussex welcomed their daughter, Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor, to the world. A carefully worded line. Joyful, yes, but eerily vague. What time was she born? What was her weight? Who delivered the child? None of those questions were answered. Now, for most families, that would be fine. Private. Respectable. But the royal family is not most families. Every previous royal birth has been documented in excruciating detail. We've known delivery doctors' names. We've had copies of birth certificates. We've had weight, length, time of day, even eyewitnesses. Not with Lilibet. And then came the name, Lilibet Diana. Immediately, it sent shockwaves through the monarchy. Not because of Diana, that was expected, but Lilibet? That was the Queen's private childhood nickname. A name so sacred, so personal, that only a few people in the Queen's life had ever used it. Her father, her sister, Prince Philip, and now, Meghan and Harry. Let me ask you something. Would you name your child after a nickname you weren't even allowed to use in person? Would you name your child after someone you were publicly feuding with? Especially someone who hadn't given you permission? Because here's the twist. According to palace insiders, the Queen was not consulted before Meghan and Harry made the name announcement. At least, not in the way they claimed. And the wording of their statement was telling. They said the name was chosen in honor of Her Majesty the Queen, whose family nickname is Lilibet. But they never said the Queen approved. They never said they asked. And the palace? They went completely silent. No congratulations from the monarch. No statement of joy from Charles or William. Just an eerie, strategic, thunderous silence. Almost as if no one knew this was coming. Or worse, no one knew if it was real. You see where this is going? Because if you're going to name your daughter after the Queen, and you want the public to believe you did it to honor her, wouldn't you want a photo of the Queen holding the baby? Wouldn't you want a statement of warmth from Buckingham Palace? Wouldn't you at least want one moment of royal acknowledgement? There was none. And that silence spoke volumes. The British press went into overdrive. Some headlines celebrated the name. Others were deeply skeptical. Some royal experts hinted the Queen had been blindsided, that the name Lilibet had been used without her blessing. Meghan and Harry pushed back, through unnamed friends, insisting the Queen had been told. But as usual, they provided no proof. No quote. No footage. No signed statement from the Queen. And again, no photo of the baby. So let's review what we had just days after her reported birth. No hospital confirmation. No attending physician statements. No photo of Meghan pregnant in her final weeks. No photo of Harry entering or leaving the hospital. No official word from Buckingham Palace. No image of the Queen holding her namesake. And we're supposed to take all of it at face value? Really? Even fans began asking questions. Was Meghan ever pregnant? Why was there so little photographic evidence? Where were the pap shots in Montecito? Where were the accidental bumps caught on camera? And when that rare pregnancy photo did emerge, it looked suspiciously like a staged photo shoot in their backyard. Almost like a publicity still. Almost like a PR response to growing speculation. Now, let's be fair. It's entirely possible that Harry and Meghan simply wanted privacy. That they deliberately chose not to share any details. That they wanted to do everything their way. Away from the royal machine. But if that's the case, why announce the birth at all? Why go public with the name Lilibet and claim it honors the Queen? If you're not going to involve the Queen, why invite public scrutiny and then act shocked when questions are asked? Because what came next only deepened the mystery. And it started with a single document. A single document that should have answered every question, silenced every rumor, and put all speculation to rest. But instead, it did the opposite. It ignited the largest wave of doubt surrounding a royal birth since the days of King Henry VIII. Because when analysts, journalists, and digital sleuths finally got their eyes on Lilibet's birth certificate, what they found wasn't clarity. It was confusion. But before we jump into that document, the one that became a smoking gun, we need to rewind just a few steps. Because the mystery didn't begin with the certificate itself. It began with everything surrounding it. You see, in the United States, birth certificates for high-profile individuals are usually protected, sealed, or restricted. Not impossible to access, but not immediate either. And yet somehow, Lilibet's birth certificate surfaced unusually quickly, but only after the Sussexes faced mounting pressure about providing proof of her birth. Convenient timing, right? Almost too convenient. But here's the real kicker. The certificate didn't come from the Sussexes themselves. It came from a third party, reportedly through a public records request, not through Meghan and Harry voluntarily offering transparency. Now think about that. If you wanted to insist your child was safely born, healthy, loved, and real, wouldn't you want to take control of that narrative? Wouldn't you, at the very least, release a clean, official scan of the document through your own channels? But no, they let someone else leak it. Someone they couldn't control. Almost as if they didn't want too many eyes on the details. Almost as if they preferred their hands to appear clean. Almost as if they wanted plausible deniability. Let's dive into the inconsistencies. First, the hospital. Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital is reputable. No argument there, but the birth certificate offered something strange. No attending physician listed. No midwife listed. No certifier signature from a doctor. Instead, the certificate showed the name of a certifying official, a clerk, not a delivering medical professional. That alone made eyebrows shoot up. And if you're thinking, wait, isn't that normal in California? The answer is, not for a high-profile birth. Not for a hospital birth. Not for a birth reported to involve private security, monitors, and the highest level of privacy protocols. Even commentators who usually defend the Sussexes found that odd. But then came detail number 2. Harry's name. Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex. Except that's not how California lists names. Titles aren't recognized in the state database. They should have listed his legal name, Henry Charles Albert David. Yet the certificate showed the Duke of Sussex. How does a royal title end up on a U.S. legal document that isn't supposed to include titles? Someone had to manually input that. Someone had to bypass standard formatting. Someone had to intentionally choose branding over accuracy. And then, Meghan's name. On Archie's birth certificate in the UK, Meghan infamously removed her first name, Rachel, leaving only Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex, a move she later blamed on palace pressure. But on Lilibet's California certificate, her name is listed as Rachel Meghan Markle. Her maiden name, not Meghan Mountbatten-Windsor, not Meghan Sussex, not Meghan Windsor. Why would she revert back to her pre-marriage legal identity, especially when she gave birth during her marriage? Which name did she actually sign under? Which legal identity is she using in California? Why the inconsistency? And here's the part most people don't know. When a birth certificate contains mismatched or inconsistent parental identifiers, it can trigger delays in issuing a passport. Which brings us to the next missing piece in this mystery. There has never been any documented record of Lilibet holding a U.S. passport. None. No leaks from TSA. No confirmations from border officials. No photographic airport sightings. Not even during the 2022 Platinum Jubilee trip, a moment when every reporter expected Harry and Meghan to parade their daughter before the Queen one last time. But instead, they kept her hidden. No balcony photo. No family portrait. No carriage ride. Not even a shadowy glimpse. And let's remember, this was a child supposedly named after the Queen herself. You'd think the monarch would want at least a single memory captured with her namesake before her death. But instead, nothing. Only a single, unverified birthday party photo released much later. A photo that many digital analysts claimed showed signs of manipulation, specifically around lighting, facial proportions, and shadow inconsistencies. We'll get deeper into that in a later chapter. For now, let's stay focused. Because the birth certificate confusion wasn't the only oddity surrounding Lilibet's supposed birth. There was something else. Something almost no one noticed at first. A tiny detail in the Sussexes' own birth announcement. They claimed the baby was born at 11:40 a.m. But several time-stamped paparazzi photos appear to place Harry miles away from the hospital around that time. And there were no photos of Meghan entering or exiting the hospital on that day, or even in the weeks leading up to the birth. Where were the telephoto lens shots? Where were the bodyguard escorts? Where was the black Range Rover caravan that always accompanies high-profile couples? Nowhere. It was as if the most photographed couple in the world suddenly became invisible overnight. Let me ask you this. Do you really believe Meghan Markle, one of the most media-attended women on the planet, could walk into and out of a public hospital without a single lens capturing it? No private entrances. No underground tunnels. No hospital protocols allowing total invisibility. Unless the birth didn't happen there. Or didn't happen at all. And now, let's return to the press release. Because there was another detail hidden in plain sight. They said, "She is more than we could have ever imagined, and we remain grateful for the love and prayers we've felt from across the globe." Notice what's missing? Specificity. No reference to the labor experience. No reference to the staff who supported them. No anecdote. No emotional detail. No humanity. It reads like a PR template, a placeholder, a paragraph constructed to fill space in an announcement that had to exist, regardless of what did or didn't happen. And the timing? The announcement was released 2 days late. Think about the logistics from their perspective. A couple obsessed with controlling their public narrative. A woman known for crafting emotional stories and soft-focus moments. A brand built on image, optics, and relatability. And yet, they waited. 2 full days. Why? Were they uncertain about something? Were they waiting for something? Were they scrambling? Or were they buying time? These inconsistencies piled up so quickly, so dramatically, that even some of their most loyal supporters began whispering privately, "Where is the proof?" Because when you strip away the PR gloss, when you peel back the surface, when you examine the sparse, heavily curated fragments of the story, there is one undeniable truth. Nothing about Lilibet's birth followed normal patterns. Not royal patterns. Not celebrity patterns. Not logistical patterns. Not legal patterns. Something was off. Something was missing. Something was being concealed. And when we look at how every major royal birth in modern history has been meticulously documented, it raises one chilling possibility. What if the secrecy wasn't about protection? What if the secrecy was about preservation? Preserving a narrative. Preserving a brand. Preserving a storyline that needed a daughter named Lilibet. A daughter who carried enormous symbolic power. A daughter whose existence required no public proof as long as the world accepted the story at face value. But that illusion began to crack the moment people started studying the documents. And that brings us to the first major turning point in this investigation. The birth certificate wasn't the only puzzle piece that didn't fit. Because the more we examine the timeline, the deeper the contradictions become. And the next one? It was so glaring, so impossible to explain away, that it sent shockwaves through reporters, analysts, and insiders alike. It had nothing to do with paperwork, nothing to do with photos, nothing to do with announcements. Instead, it came from inside Buckingham Palace, from the royal family themselves, from the people who, by all logic, should have welcomed the child with open arms. Yet none of them, not Charles, not Camilla, not William, not Kate, met the newborn. Not in the hospital, not at home, not during visits, not over Zoom, nothing. And the reason why is where this story takes its darkest turn. But what came next would unravel everything we thought we knew, piece by piece. Until the question at the center of this mystery could no longer be ignored. Did the royal family stay away from Lilibet? Or was there simply no baby to meet? And what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What came next wasn't a press interview. It wasn't a heartwarming baby photo. It wasn't even a palace acknowledgement. What came next was paperwork. A single sheet of legal documentation that should have ended the speculation. But instead, it ignited a firestorm. Because if the mystery surrounding Lilibet Diana's birth was already simmering, the official birth certificate was like throwing gasoline on a whispering flame. Now, let's be honest. Birth certificates aren't normally the stuff of scandal. They're supposed to be boring, factual, clinical, date, time, location, parents, signature, simple. So how did a single document become the focal point of international royal controversy? Because in this case, the document, and what it left out, spoke volumes. Let's go through it line by line. Lilibet Diana, Mountbatten, Windsor. Date of birth, June 4th, 2021. Place of birth, Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. So far, so standard. But immediately, things start to get odd. Let's start with the parents. The birth certificate lists. Father, the Duke of Sussex. Mother, Rachel Meghan Markle. Now hold on. Not Henry Charles Albert David, Harry's legal birth name. Not Prince Henry of Wales. Not even Harry Mountbatten Windsor. Just the Duke of Sussex. In what universe is that an acceptable entry on a legal document in the United States? Let me be crystal clear here. The U.S. legal system does not recognize noble titles. Period. Your driver's license won't say Duke. Your social security number doesn't care if you're a prince. Your baby's birth certificate is supposed to reflect legal names, not royal styling. So how did the Duke of Sussex end up on that certificate? Who approved it? Who authorized it? Did someone within the California Department of Public Health bend the rules to avoid backlash from a globally known couple? Or was there pressure exerted behind the scenes to ensure that the document aligned with their brand? Because that's what this smells like, branding over legality. And if that entry was questionable, the next one was even stranger. The mother's name is listed as Rachel Meghan Markle. That's her legal name, yes. But it raises an eyebrow for one reason. She didn't use that name on Archie's birth certificate. In fact, back in 2019, Meghan had her name legally altered on Archie's UK birth certificate to read, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. And when the press noticed, she claimed she was pressured by the palace to remove her first names. It sparked a mini PR war at the time. Fast forward to Lilibet's birth, and now, suddenly, Meghan's using her full maiden name again? Why the shift? Especially since, at that point, Meghan had been married for over 3 years. Why not use Meghan Mountbatten Windsor? Or Meghan Sussex? Or at least Meghan Markle Windsor? And here's the contradiction. If Harry is listed as the Duke of Sussex to reflect his royal identity, why is Meghan listed under a name that erases hers? It makes no sense, unless the goal wasn't legal accuracy, but media optics. Because it looks like Harry is the royal, and Meghan is the every woman. A duchess married to a prince. Cinderella come to life. It's theatrical, and in a birth certificate, that's deeply unusual. But it doesn't stop there. Another strange omission? There is no attending physician listed. None. No OBGYN. No midwife. No signature from a delivering doctor. Instead, the certificate is signed off by an official from the Office of Vital Records, essentially a registrar. Someone who certifies documents, not someone who delivered the baby. Compare that to most hospital births in the US, where the attending physician typically signs the certificate. In high-profile births, especially, the delivering doctor is often named in press coverage, either voluntarily or through public record. So why didn't Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital confirm the delivery? Why didn't a single nurse, midwife, or doctor publicly acknowledge their participation? Was it for privacy? Maybe, but it gets even stranger. Multiple journalists attempted to confirm Meghan's hospital stay through routine press channels. The response? No comment. And when local reporters visited the hospital and inquired about delivery records, staff were reportedly instructed to refer all questions to the Sussex's PR team. That's not normal. Hospitals don't usually coordinate with celebrity publicists about official birth documentation. They can confirm or deny presence without violating HIPAA, especially when a celebrity couple announces the birth themselves. Yet in this case, everyone clammed up. It's as if a cone of silence had been thrown over the entire event. Now, let's revisit something else. The certificate lists Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital as the place of birth, but there are 0 photos of Meghan entering or leaving that hospital. Not from staff, not from bystanders, not even from the usual swarm of paparazzi who park outside Meghan and Harry's Montecito mansion day and night. You mean to tell me no one caught a glimpse? No security detail spotted? No baby car seat carried out? No parked Range Rover blocking an entrance? Come on. This is the same couple that claimed paparazzi chased them through New York in 2023. The same couple who were spotted during grocery runs, dog walks, and coffee shop visits. And yet on the day of their daughter's birth, they pulled off a full stealth operation? Either they were extraordinarily lucky or extraordinarily well hidden. And that brings us to the timing. The certificate says Lilibet was born at 11:40 a.m. on June 4, 2021. But there's a problem with that timestamp. Paparazzi photos place Harry in a different part of Montecito that very same morning, just after 11:30 a.m. Not at the hospital, not near the delivery room, not in any sort of security convoy. What was he doing? Driving. Alone. Casually dressed. Reportedly smiling. And there was no follow-up footage of him returning with a baby, a carrier, or even an escort. Did he teleport to the hospital and back in 20 minutes? Or was the certificate pre-processed? Was the date of birth symbolically chosen? Is it possible the document was filed before the birth actually occurred? Or even more provocatively, is it possible the birth never happened at all in that hospital? This leads us to the growing online theory that Lilibet wasn't born in a hospital at all. Some speculate that she may have been born via surrogate. Others go further, suggesting the child was adopted, or that there was a private birth that occurred outside of Santa Barbara altogether. While those theories remain speculative, here's the one thing no one can deny. There is no independent confirmation that Meghan ever gave birth. No photo of her heavily pregnant in June 2021. No ambulance. No wheelchair exit. No nurse testimony. Just a one-paragraph announcement. A vague certificate. And a name that conveniently invoked two of the most powerful women in royal history. It's like a script. A carefully crafted narrative. A story designed to evoke emotion, but avoid proof. And that emotion was powerful. A daughter named after the Queen and Diana? It tugged at every heartstring. Who could question it? Who would dare? And that's the genius of it. By framing Lilibet's birth as a tribute, not just a family moment, it made scrutiny feel cruel. But now, 2 years later, with the palace confirming that King Charles has never met her, and whispers of faked christenings and digitally manipulated photos swirling online, the question isn't whether the certificate was filed, it's whether it reflects the truth. And that question opens the door to the next, far darker revelation. Because when a royal baby is born, one of the first milestones is a christening, a sacred tradition, a royal rite of passage, a public acknowledgement that seals the child's place in the family and the line of succession. And in Lilibet's case, that christening may never have happened at all. Coming up next, a ceremony no one saw, no photos, no royal attendance, no clergy record, and a cover story that keeps changing. What really happened at Lilibet Diana's supposed christening? Or more importantly, did it happen at all? A baby born into royalty, a name that combines two of the most powerful women in British history, a story tailor-made for global sympathy. And yet, no christening photo. None. Not one. No lace gown. No silver font. No chapel. No Archbishop of Canterbury. No beaming grandparents. No royals lining up in ceremonial garb. Just nothing. For a family where christenings are sacred and strategic, that absence was more than unusual. It was unthinkable. So let's ask the question no one in the mainstream press dared to touch. Was Lilibet Diana ever baptized into the Church of England? Or was there no christening at all? And if there was, what exactly were they hiding? Let's start with precedent. Every modern royal child has had a formal christening. Every single one. It's not just tradition, it's a televised ritual. We've seen photos of George, Charlotte, Louis, and Archie in the same historic christening gown. A replica of the original royal robe worn by Queen Victoria's children. We've seen godparents. We've seen royal observers. We've seen bishops and archbishops administering the holy rite. We've seen lineage on display, heritage being passed, duty being sealed. So where was Lilibet's moment? Where was the ceremony? Where was the photo that said, she belongs to the crown? Because as far as the public knows, it never happened. Now, here's where things get strange. At first, the Sussexes said nothing. No christening was announced. No planning leaked. No hints dropped. And remember, this was after months of PR campaigns, Netflix deals, interviews, and social media buzz. So why go silent on this one milestone? A milestone so important that even the late Queen reportedly delayed her health recovery in hopes of attending? Multiple royal insiders claimed that Meghan and Harry wanted the christening to happen in Windsor, at St. George's Chapel, with full royal participation. That alone raised eyebrows. Because if you've spent the last 3 years accusing the monarchy of racism, neglect, cruelty, and lies, why would you want to drag your newborn daughter into their sanctified spaces? Why would you want the Archbishop of Canterbury, the same man who allegedly married you privately in your backyard, to now bless your child in a royal ceremony? It didn't make sense, unless it was about optics. Because a Windsor christening would have done something crucial. Legitimized Lilibet. It would have shown she was embraced, that the royals approved, that the institution acknowledged her existence and her place in the line of succession. But the palace said nothing. No invitations were confirmed. No guest list leaked. No date was set. And then, abruptly, the Sussexes changed their tune. They began floating the idea of a California-based, private christening. One reporter cited sources close to the couple who said the ceremony would take place in the U.S., possibly at the Episcopal Church of the Good Shepherd in Beverly Hills, a church known for its celebrity congregants. Others hinted at a backyard event at their Montecito estate. And then crickets. No confirmation, no date, no witnesses, just vague, floating rumors, whispered mentions, nothing concrete. And then it happened. March 2023. A story drops in People magazine. The Sussexes announced that Lilibet had been christened privately in California, with no photos, no guest list, and no witnesses named. That's it. Just a line in a fluff piece. No official statement from the church. No press release from the Episcopal Diocese of Los Angeles. No confirmation from the Archbishop. No statements from godparents. It was an announcement by proxy. And what was the most bizarre detail? King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince William, and Princess Kate were all invited. Yet none attended. Not a single senior royal. Allegedly due to scheduling conflicts. Really? Too busy to attend the christening of the Queen's namesake? Too busy to stand by a child whose name caused global headlines? Or was it that they didn't believe the event was legitimate? Was it even real? Let's examine what the Sussexes did release. According to their spokesperson, the event was an intimate gathering with close family and friends. That's it. No video. No live stream. No publication in the court circular. No image of the child in a baptismal gown. Not even a low-resolution photo from the back. And for a couple who documented their courting years, breakups, therapy, and engagement for Netflix, they gave us nothing. Ask yourself why? Why not show Lilibet being cradled by her mother? Why not show Meghan lighting a candle, smiling beside the font? Why not include it in their multi-million-dollar documentary deal? It was the perfect redemption moment. Unless they couldn't, or wouldn't, or it didn't happen the way they said. Let's dig deeper. Christenings in the Anglican tradition require witnesses, sponsors, godparents, clergy, parish registration, and they're typically documented in official parish logs. So royal watchers began calling Episcopal churches across Montecito and Santa Barbara. Some churches politely declined to comment. Others flat out said they had no record of the event. And the Los Angeles Diocese? No response. Not even a generic, "we respect parishioner privacy" boilerplate. It was radio silence across the board, almost like someone told them, don't speak, don't confirm, don't deny. And then came the final insult to royal tradition. Lilibet was allegedly given the title princess during the christening. That's right, no approval from King Charles. No inclusion in any official document. Just a self-declared title bestowed at a ceremony no one can prove happened. Harry and Meghan began referring to her as Princess Lilibet Diana in press materials. And suddenly, the royal website was updated. Lilibet's name was changed to include Princess. Quietly. No announcement. Almost as if the palace caved. Almost as if the Sussexes forced the issue through media pressure. But here's the real scandal. You can't retroactively use a royal title as a bargaining chip. It doesn't work that way. Either the monarch grants it formally, or it's left unused. But Meghan and Harry? They wanted it both ways. Reject the institution publicly, exploit it privately, and the christening was their Trojan horse. If the event was legitimate, then the world would have seen a child publicly accepted by both the monarchy and the church. But by keeping it hidden, by releasing no visuals, no guest list, and no official church acknowledgement, they left behind a vacuum. And in that vacuum, doubts grew. Did the christening happen? Was Lilibet actually baptized in any recognized Anglican rite? Was it a family moment or a media ploy? Even some of their allies were confused. Why not release a simple photo? Just one? After all, they'd released staged baby photos before. Why go dark now? Unless the child couldn't be shown. Or wasn't there. Or wasn't the child we expected. Because here's the theory now gaining traction. The christening wasn't real. It was a symbolic announcement. A headline to seal a narrative, not to reflect a moment. And by calling it private, by releasing it through friendly press, the Sussexes avoided scrutiny. But they also invited suspicion. And the timing? March 2023, right before Charles's coronation. A coronation the Sussexes were invited to. A coronation they turned into a PR battle. A coronation where Lilibet and Archie's absence became the loudest silence of all. And when King Charles was officially crowned, Lilibet remained invisible. No photo, no mention, no acknowledgement from the royal balcony. And Charles? still had never met his granddaughter, still hadn't laid eyes on the child allegedly christened in his name. Think about that. Would you skip your granddaughter's christening? Would you let her be titled princess without your blessing? Would you allow your legacy to be manipulated without a response? Or is that exactly what happened? And what came next would challenge the very existence of Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor, because the only public sightings of her came from Netflix. And those few frames, those few seconds, they raise more questions than they answer. Next up, the footage that was supposed to prove it all. But when you freeze frame every detail, the illusion falls apart. And what you're left with might not be real. A blurry smile, a fleeting giggle, a backlit silhouette crawling across a living room floor. That's all we got. No formal portraits, no birthday photos, no candid family moments with the king. Just a few choppy seconds of supposed home footage buried deep inside the 6-part Netflix docuseries, Harry and Meghan. And those few seconds? They were supposed to prove everything. That Lilibet Diana was real, healthy, happy, part of the family. But instead, they did the exact opposite. Because when internet sleuths, frame-by-frame editors, and amateur forensic analysts started digging into the footage, what they found wasn't reassurance. It was manipulation, smoke, mirrors, misdirection. And just like that, what was meant to be undeniable proof turned into something more sinister. A question mark. A question mark that now looms large over the entire Sussex narrative. Let's rewind to the Netflix trailer, the moment millions of viewers first caught a glimpse of baby Lilibet. A soft focus shot of Meghan cradling a baby in the garden. A baby whose face was not visible. A baby shown only in profile or completely turned away. A baby in motion, never still enough to analyze clearly. Now ask yourself, why? Why include her at all if you were just going to obscure her? Why not show her face? Once clearly, this wasn't a documentary about a stranger. This was a documentary about family, about trauma, about lineage, about truth. So why keep the most innocent member of that family, allegedly the symbol of healing between Harry and his father, hidden? Unless you had something to hide. Because here's the thing. If the footage had been staged, if a different child had been used, or if the scenes had been filmed at a completely different time than claimed, how would the average viewer ever know? We wouldn't. Not unless we started paying attention to the details. And oh boy, people did. Reddit threads exploded. Twitter detectives fired up their editing software. Facial recognition filters were tested. Shadows were analyzed. Body proportions were compared. And what they uncovered was disturbing. Let's start with scene 1. Meghan sitting cross-legged, holding a baby on a picnic blanket. The camera never shows the baby's face. Only the top of the head. Hair that appears reddish, a nod to Harry's coloring. But look closer. The baby's head proportion seems off. Too large for the torso. Neck mobility inconsistent with a child of that age. Could it be a toddler? Could it be a different child entirely? Possibly. And then comes scene 2. Harry lifting a child into the air indoors. The baby giggles. But again, the face is obscured by motion blur. Shot from behind. Fast-paced. Poor lighting. Freeze-frame the shot. And what do you get? A blur. A mass. A flicker of skin tone. No definitive image. No concrete proof. And here's where it gets even trickier. In every scene where Lilibet appears, the footage is either overexposed, light washing out facial detail, motion blurred, camera moving too fast, or shot from an angle that avoids full facial visibility. Every single time. Coincidence? Or calculated? Let's remember, this is a Netflix production. We're talking about professional cinematographers, lighting experts, directors, producers, editors. This isn't your uncle filming on an iPhone. If they wanted to capture a clear, beautiful, verified shot of baby Lilibet, they could have done so in seconds. But they didn't. Instead, they edited around her. And then came the smoking gun. The birthday footage. Netflix shows a few shots of Lilibet's first birthday in the backyard of their Montecito home. A blue outfit, red hair, a side-angle photo where she's seated on grass near a birthday cake. Only, the photo looks oddly familiar. Because just hours after the Netflix show aired, eagle-eyed viewers found a near-identical stock photo online, featuring a toddler with eerily similar hair, body posture, and outfit. Not an exact match, but close. Too close. Within hours, speculation ignited. Was a stock image used as a visual placeholder? Could it have been a digitally enhanced or manipulated version of a different child? The lighting matched. The background looked composited. And the facial features, once run through AI comparison tools, scored a low probability of matching Meghan or Harry's genetic profile. Now, those tests aren't conclusive, but they added to the firestorm. And just when things were getting spicy, the most revealing clue dropped. In one frame, just one, a camera catches a reflection in the window behind Meghan. The reflection shows a child, but the child's reflection appears to be facing the wrong direction relative to the camera. In other words, it might not be the same child. Or worse, there might have been no child in front of the camera at all. Was the shot layered? Was the reflection composited during post-production? Was the entire scene manipulated using stock overlays, color filters, or stand-ins? It sounds wild, until you remember who we're talking about. This is the couple who staged a pregnancy reveal via iPad call with Oprah. The couple who released no photos of their daughter for the first year of her life. Until pressured. The couple who claimed a private wedding 3 days before the royal ceremony, and were publicly contradicted by the Archbishop of Canterbury himself. So forgive us if we're not taking everything at face value anymore. Because if Netflix was meant to prove the child's existence, why did it feel like they were trying so hard not to show her? And this isn't just a visual issue. Let's talk about narration. In scenes with Lilibet, Harry's voiceover never directly says her name. Not once. He says the kids, our daughter, she, but never Lilibet. A strange omission for a father who named his child after his grandmother. Was it a choice? Or was it protection? Protection from legal fallout if the footage were later disputed? Protection from potential backlash if the child wasn't Lilibet at all? You see, the power of narration is subtle, but strategic. What you don't say is sometimes more important than what you do. And perhaps the most chilling detail of all. When Netflix released the promotional stills for Harry and Meghan, Lilibet wasn't in a single one. Not one official photo. She was teased, obscured, shadowed, like a phantom. And just like that, the footage that was meant to settle the debate became evidence in the other direction. Because when every shot hides her face, when every angle dodges confirmation, when every scene is stylized beyond recognition, you're not showing us your child. You're showing us a concept, an illusion, a placeholder in the story you want to sell. A royal baby who only exists in the blurry margins. And if that's the case, if Lilibet has never been clearly photographed, confirmed, or acknowledged in person by any member of the royal family, then we are no longer dealing with a PR strategy. We are dealing with a fabrication. A fabrication that raises questions not just about the footage, but about the intent behind it. Why show her at all? Why tease her? Why feed the speculation? Unless the goal wasn't to protect her, but to prolong the mystery, to keep the story alive, to keep the sympathy flowing, to control the narrative. Because as long as no one knows for sure, no one can prove them wrong. But what came next wasn't a blurry photo. It wasn't a shadowy video. It was a statement, a quiet, private admission from the highest level of the royal family, from King Charles himself. 6 words, allegedly spoken in confidence, that would change everything. I've never met my granddaughter. Ever. 6 quiet words, allegedly whispered in private, allegedly never meant for public ears, allegedly said by King Charles himself. But once they leaked, they echoed through the palace walls like cannon fire. They didn't come with pomp, or press, or official denial, just silence. And in that silence, a scandal bloomed. Because if the King of England has never once laid eyes on his own granddaughter, 2 years after her birth, then this is no longer just a story about distance. This is a story about absence, about fracture, about deception, and possibly about fiction. Let's unpack it. According to royal sources, 2 of them, independently verified by longtime palace correspondents, Charles, in a moment of candor during a private reception, allegedly told a close aide, "I've never met Lilibet. Not once. Not in person. Not at the hospital. Not at Frogmore Cottage. Not at the Jubilee. Not over Christmas. Not even at Balmoral in the Queen's final months. Never." Let that sink in. Because Charles is not some estranged uncle. He is the reigning monarch. He is the father of Prince Harry. He is the grandfather of the girl named after his mother. He is the man who once publicly begged for peace with his son's family. And yet, He has never met Lilibet, not even seen her. When pressed on whether he'd ever done a Zoom call, ever watched a live stream of her birthday, ever been included in a photo-sharing app like most modern grandparents, the alleged answer, no, not even that. And here's where things get chilling. When Queen Elizabeth passed away in September 2022, it was reported, again by palace insiders, that Harry and Meghan were in the UK. In fact, they were just miles away from Balmoral at one point, and still no meeting. They didn't bring Lilibet to see her great-grandmother before her passing. They didn't allow a final moment. No family farewell. No chance for the Queen to kiss the forehead of the little girl named in her honor. At least, not one that's ever been documented, and not one that Charles has ever confirmed. So what are we left with? A king, a grandfather, a monarch who has reportedly never seen the child the world has been told is sixth in line to his throne. And that silence? That gaping absence? It's louder than any statement. Because Charles may be many things, distant, aloof, cautious, but he is not reckless. He knows the importance of royal image. He understands the weight of public expectation. He lived through the Diana years. So if he truly had met his granddaughter, if there were any photos, any video, any record at all, do you really believe the palace wouldn't have used it by now? To humanize him? To bridge the PR divide? To soften the Cold War between Windsor and Montecito? But they haven't. And now we have to ask, why? Is it because Lilibet has been deliberately withheld from him? Or is it because she was never presented in the first place? Let's look at the timeline. June 2021. Lilibet is allegedly born in California. July 2021. The Queen reportedly sees her on Zoom. No screenshots. No confirmation. No witnesses. 2022. Platinum Jubilee. Harry and Meghan attend. Lilibet reportedly turns 1 during the event. A party is said to take place at Frogmore Cottage. The Queen is rumored to have met Lilibet, again, in private. But here's the catch. Charles was at that same Jubilee. He saw Archie, briefly, but insiders claimed he did not see Lilibet. No photos, no mention, no press leak. And according to the Times, when Charles was asked about the event in passing, he looked uncomfortable and changed the subject. That's not a proud grandfather. That's not a man bursting with joy. That's a man shielding something. And the shielding didn't stop there. Later in 2022, after the Queen's passing, Charles began preparing for his coronation. Invitations were extended to Harry and Meghan. It became a media circus. Would they attend? Would they boycott? Eventually, Harry attended solo. Meghan and the children stayed in California. And once again, no Lilibet. But here's the twist. In the weeks following the coronation, a senior palace aide was overheard speaking to a royal correspondent at a garden party. When asked about Charles's relationship with his California grandkids, the aide allegedly said, "He doesn't know them. He's never spent a minute with the little one." That phrase, the little one, was repeated in a second source's confirmation. He doesn't even refer to her by name. She's the little one. That's not warmth. That's detachment. That's not intimacy. That's estrangement. But is it estrangement or disbelief? Because here's where things take a darker turn. According to a source inside Clarence House, Charles has grown deeply frustrated with Harry's ever-shifting narratives. One moment, Harry is offering peace. The next, he's publishing a memoir calling his stepmother a villain, accusing his father of being emotionally unavailable, and alleging racism within the palace. How can Charles trust that the stories surrounding Lilibet aren't just another calculated PR move? The source went further, alleging that behind closed doors, Charles has voiced doubts about the entire arrangement. Doubts not just about Meghan and Harry's choices, but about the very nature of what they've presented. The words used. "We simply don't know what's real anymore." That's what Charles is said to have told a senior advisor after watching the Harry and Meghan docuseries. Not rage. Not grief. Not regret. Just quiet, unsettling confusion. And here's where things explode. If Charles has never met his granddaughter, if he's never seen her with his own eyes, if there is no photograph, no letter, no moment to hold on to, then the question becomes, why haven't Meghan and Harry made that happen? Why haven't they flown her over, even once? Why hasn't Harry, who traveled solo to the UK multiple times since 2021, ever brought his daughter? Security? Please. The royal family could arrange a security detail in a heartbeat. They've done it for Archie. They've done it for less senior royals countless times. COVID? That argument only held weight in 2021. Privacy? That doesn't hold when you've filmed a Netflix show. So what's left? One haunting possibility. They didn't want the child to be seen. Or worse, there was no child to bring. It's a theory gaining traction, even among palace staff. Whispers now circulate about whether the king's silence is strategic, whether his refusal to publicly challenge Meghan and Harry's narrative is not cowardice, but caution. Because if Charles were to express even the slightest doubt about Lilibet's existence, the media explosion would be catastrophic. It would tear the family further apart. It would provoke lawsuits. It would drag the institution into a war of paternity, legitimacy, and scandal. So instead, Charles stays quiet. But silence doesn't equal belief, and silence doesn't equal proof. And when the King of England, grandfather to a child named in honor of his own mother, says he's never seen her, that tells us something. It tells us that no one in the senior royal circle has. Not Charles, not Camilla, not William, not Kate. And if no one has seen her, then what, exactly, are we being shown? Because the next chapter, the next layer of this unraveling mystery, takes us inside Kensington Palace, where William and Kate's decision to stay silent, utterly, completely, and icily silent, has added even more fuel to the fire. They're not just quiet. They're avoiding any mention of Lilibet. No gifts, no congratulations, no smiles, just distance. And their reasons may shock you. They smiled. They waved. They posed on palace balconies, attended state dinners, and visited children's hospitals with glowing pride. But when it came to one little girl, one alleged niece, the Prince and Princess of Wales had nothing to say. No congratulations. No comment. No acknowledgement. Just silence. And silence from the future King and Queen of England is never accidental. Because in the royal family, every move is a message. And William and Kate? Their message has been loud and clear from the very start. They do not recognize Lilibet Diana. At least, not publicly, not formally, not as family. And that absence has become one of the biggest signs that something is deeply, deeply wrong. Let's go back. June 2021. The world learns that Meghan and Harry have welcomed a daughter. She's named Lilibet Diana, a tribute to both Queen Elizabeth II and the late Princess of Wales. A clever move, a calculated move. A move designed to anchor the child in royal legacy, sentiment, and emotional branding. And yet, not a word from William and Kate. Not a social media post. Not a press release. Not even a carefully worded, "We wish them well." Just a hard pause. Now contrast that with Archie's birth in 2019. Within hours, William and Kate released a short congratulatory statement through Kensington Palace. There was a tweet. There were photos of them smiling at events, politely answering questions about the new arrival. Minimal? Yes, but still something. With Lilibet? Nothing. That silence, icy, deliberate, and sustained, was the first red flag. But it didn't stop there. Because over the next 2 years, every opportunity to recognize Lilibet's existence was quietly avoided. Let's break it down. Christmas 2021. The royal family releases their annual Christmas cards. William and Kate's card features their children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, beaming on a trip to Jordan. There is no mention of Archie or Lilibet. No family message about all royal grandchildren. No subtle olive branch. Just the Wales family. As if Harry's children didn't exist. The Platinum Jubilee, 2022. Harry and Meghan return to the UK. Lilibet's first birthday takes place during the celebrations. Reports claim a small private party was held at Frogmore Cottage. Again, William and Kate do not attend. They do not acknowledge the event. They do not send visible gifts. They do not issue a statement. They are seen elsewhere, engaging with the public, fulfilling their Jubilee duties, never crossing paths with the Sussexes. A future king, skipping his niece's first birthday. A future queen, not even mentioning the child named after her husband's beloved mother. That's not just a snub. That's a cold, calculated wall. And royal insiders noticed. Several commentators, including Camilla Tominey and Roya Nika, hinted at deep personal tensions that prevented the brothers from even attempting a photo op. But tensions don't stop a royal baby visit. Even Charles visited Archie. Even Camilla offered smiles. But William? Nothing. He is stone-faced, resolute, unforgiving, and when pressed about the issue during interviews, he dodges with chilling precision. During a public event in early 2023, a reporter shouted from the crowd,